Yes, good morning again.
Good morning.
And welcome those of you who this is your first time joining. It's always wonderful to have new faces in the audience. So welcome. So our annual theme this year is living out loud. How do we live our best life out loud? And this past month, we've been looking at paradox. We started the month with playing with paradox, getting our mindset paradox, getting comfortable with the discomfort. Last week, Reverend Dr. Mike talked about the tyranny of the or, where life has to be this or that. And so today we get to bring it together, and it's not this or that, it could be this and that. So finding that third way. Confucius says yin and yang, male and female, strong and weak, rigid and tender, heaven and earth, light and darkness, thunder and lightning, cold and warm, good and evil. The interplay of the opposites is the principle that constitutes the earth. So when our thinking is just black or white, we're missing this beautiful gray in the middle. And Confucius was around a couple years ago, so this is a philosophy that's been around. So I wanted to start today with our biggest paradox that I find is how are we a spiritual being having a human experience? And we're reading this great book in Sangha and by Mark Nepo called The 7,000 Ways to Listen. And I utilize this book a lot today in our quotes. So Margot might have heard a few of them already because she's in our Sangha. And Mark Nepo states two irrevocable truths. The truth of how life, how it comes out of nowhere like a strong breeze to lift our face, and how it goes away. And the truth of how we live, and the truth of how life is like a storm can rough up our hearts, how we have no choice but to feel that wind move through us and around us. These have become my teachers, trying to accept the nature of what and trying not to deny its impact. And last night I was sitting in my jacuzzi and I was kind of running around, just kind of going down the rabbit hole, just feeling the weight of life. I can't believe that Matthew Perry passed away because he was a contemporary. I mean, we were basically the same age. And at one point he knew my name because he used to play tennis where I worked. And it's just crazy to think that, wow, and how fast life goes sometimes. And so I was really going down that paradox. The paradox of living is the longer we live, the more we experience death because these people pass away. And right now we're coming to my three most favorite days of the year, Halloween, All Saints' Day, and then Day of the Dead. And as this year, as we know in the Celtic tradition, is called Samhain. And as the days grow shorter, it's really calling us to look inward, to the opportunity to honor those who've gone before us. Now, I've experienced a tremendous amount of death in my life, and each time it really reminds me how precious life was. And as I was sitting in my jacuzzi last night, I was thinking, I remember laughing with Matthew Perry. I said something to him, and he came back with a quip, and how funny he was, and just how sharp he was, and yet how his life was pretty tragically filled with a lot of challenges and addictions and such. And it just seemed that he was getting over it, but here is this light and the dark coming together. And I was sitting in my jacuzzi last night, am I living my best life? Am I doing the best I can? So this Samhain season, we're celebrating the end of harvest. We are welcoming this dark half of the year, and we're preparing for winter, recharging our strengths for the second half of the year, and to shake off any past misfortunes. And, can we take a page from our ancestors and prepare for the winter? I mean, they used to can and pickle. I mean, we run to Whole Foods and Sprouts and Trader Joe's, so it's not like we really have to pack for the winter. But can we pack for the winter and ask for purification and integrate the lessons that we've learned so far this year? And, the spring brings new births and new births. And what can we harvest right now? What can we, go inward to bring? Healing our souls, setting our intentions, going into that dark part of ourselves to bring out our inner light, going through that paradox of the dark and light. And this right now, this is when the veil's the thinnest between the two worlds. That's what they say in the Celtic tradition. And they used to leave offerings outside of their villages, so the ancestors who come forward wouldn't come and take you away. They'd wear masks, and that's where our Halloween comes from, is that they didn't want people to come from the other side of the veil to take them back. And so, we have the ofrenda here, which is absolutely beautiful. I know the screen's covering it, and this is for a Day of the Dead, which is November 2nd, which is also called All Souls Day, which is probably my favorite day of the year. Okay, it's my birthday. Anyway, you want to honor people who've gone on in the past. It might be that one stranger who said that kind word or that smiled at you, and just knowing that, how they changed your life. It could be family members. It could be whoever, my dog who just transitioned a couple weeks ago. And it's really important to remember people, because they say that the life has 3 endings. The death, our physical death, then the second death when our body disappears, and then the death of being forgotten. And so that to me is like, wow, will people remember what I've done? Will people remember how I made them feel? It's really important to me that I want to make a difference in the world and make the world a better place. And the thought of being forgotten kind of scares me a little bit. Like, oh, I don't want to be forgotten. I had a friend, I think I've told, some of you might have heard the story. My friend was she was an older woman, and she kept asking me, when am I going to die? When am I going to die? And she lived to be 103. And I told her, you'll find the perfect day to die. You'll find it. Why am I still here? I don't know. You have work to be done. And I said, you'll find the perfect day. And she died on Day of the Dead on my birthday. And I thought that was the perfect day. And I figured she had to die that day because she needed her ancestors to come and grab her and take her over, because she loved being part of this human manifestation. And my dad had a similar experience on his deathbed. When he was laying there, I saw him reaching out. And I'm like, Dad, who's there? And he mumbled something. I'm like, Dad, who do you see? He mumbled something. I'm like, I'm sorry, Dad, I can't understand. What are you saying? And clear as day, he said, Mother. And so I was laughing. I'm like, oh, great, Grandma's here. Well, go to Grandma. Go be with your mom. I'm sure he was trying to run away from that, but still. Part of our declaration of principles is the eternality of our soul forever expanding. And chapter 23, oh, I had the slide in here, I forgot. This is the light and dark of the wind and then the rainbow. I forgot about that slide. I wish I had that up. Chapter 23 is Ernest Holmes talks about the immortality and states, the body is a concrete manifestation existing in time and space for the purpose of furnishing a vehicle through which life may express itself. The physical universe is a body of God. It's a manifestation and form of the mind of God that is creation. While it may have its beginnings and ends, of itself is neither begins or ends. The manifestation of spirit is necessary if spirit is to come into self-realization, hence the body. And I thought that was kind of cool. So we have our physical body and our physical bodies. That's the paradox of the and. How do we incorporate being the spiritual being and this human being? And one of the things I've been working on is how to deal with challenging situations and still be at peace. And I know this is the paradox of how can I be angry and spiritual? And I used to just think, well, I'm just going to stuff it because I'm going to take this anger and stuff it because I'm such a spiritual person and I don't experience anger. Well, that doesn't really work so well. And so I'm, working on it. I'm learning how to express myself, learning how to express my anger in a nonviolent form, journaling, meditating, just talking to my practitioners who really helped me get through this stuff. So in this book, The 7,000 Ways to Listen, Mark Nepo says the absence of agitation alone is not necessarily peace, and that the presence of such difficult feelings does not mean we are necessarily off-center. Rather, the task of being fully alive challenges us to stay in the center while feeling the full range of life on earth. So just because I think I'm not angry doesn't mean that I'm not angry or I'm agitated. I found this little photo here. So I'm sure I've been that little girl sitting on the bench, stomping my feet, demanding agitation. But there's also the possibility to just breathe in, as Andrea was talking about, the beautiful maple trees, the full moon, the sunrise, the sunset. Oopsie, wrong one, wrong button. Oh, anyway, I've been jarred into feeling both centered and hurt at once, accepting that the situation won't change, and at the same time not shutting down what the disappointment feels like. Staying in that moment, feeling the disappointment, trying not to run from the agitation in the name of peace, but trying to relax my being until I'm spacious enough to be a container for both peace and agitation. I've been doing some somatic therapy, and the therapist is always like, we're trying to build a container so you can express the anger, so you can feel the sadness. Building that container so you're able to hold and just sit with those feelings. And I'm like, feelings? It's what I'm really working on. He goes on to say, for peace and agitation are stitched together and tugged on, they unravel a thread of oneness. So this is all the same thread, this peace and this agitation. It's the paradox of this and that, the paradox of agitation and peace. In the 7,000 Ways to Listen, there was a story about two cross-country skiers who were going across the lake at night. And at that night, they ran into a moose that was trapped in the lake. And they realized that if they tried to move the moose at that time, the shard of glass would probably cut the moose and kill it. So now they were in a situation. They wanted to save the moose, but at that moment, they didn't have the ability to do this. So they covered the moose with their tent, and they shined the light kind of where the ice was kind of melting into the moose to just kind of keep it warm. And they waited to sunrise when the temperatures rose a little bit so they'd be able to pull the moose safely out of the iced lake. And this is a powerful metaphor. I think I have a slide for this. I'm working on the slide thing. Here we go. Nope, not that way. This is a powerful metaphor for how to listen to be with those who have fallen through, stay close and keep them warm, resisting the urge to prematurely solve the situation. If nothing can be done, sit with them, withstand the urge to abandon those who seem stuck. So, as many of you know, my best friend has stage 4 cancer right now. And I went out to take care of her, and I had this brilliant idea that I was going to make her organic chicken and fresh vegetables and berries and feed her these really healthy meals and make her green juices, and because she has cancer and she should be eating this way. But instead, she wanted processed mac and cheese and hot dogs. And part of me was just like, washed down with a Reese's peanut butter cup. And part of me was just like, you have stage 4 cancer. You need to be eating your greens and your juices and your organic chicken. But it wasn't my place to tell her what she needed. She's an adult. So I just stayed there in the paradoxical and I made her boxed macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. I made her SpaghettiOs and her stovetop creamy chicken microwavable meal because that is what she wanted. And so as much as I really, really wanted to nourish her with healthy foods, but that wasn't going to feed her soul. That was just going to make her irritated and not happy with me. So I had to step back and kind of let it be what it was and not try to solve the problem, my problem that I had, because it was really my problem. And so I had to just sit there and hold a place of loving for her and serve her this this food with love and confidence and peace. And I even, she wanted some, I got her to eat vegetables. Mind you, it was canned peas, but but I made it in a beautiful way. I made the macaroni and cheese, and I created the peas in a lovely, beautiful form so it can look like a Gordon Ramsay 5-star meal, even though it was boxed macaroni, cheese, hot dogs, and canned peas. But I did it with love. And to me, that was the and part of the paradox, is to just sit there and hold that space for her. He goes on to say, there's no greater mystery than this, that we keep seeking reality, though, in fact, we are in reality. Not accepting this paradox is the cause of much of our suffering, as we are forever chasing horizons, forever searching for some secret of life other than where we are. Oh, so we keep seeking reality, though in fact we are in reality. This is our reality right here. I keep looking and trying to be. I was sitting in the jacuzzi going down that rabbit hole last night, judging myself for not being good enough. And Matthew Perry had passed away, and oh my goodness, I was sitting in my jacuzzi and he passed away in his jacuzzi. What if I don't get out of my jacuzzi tonight? You know, it was a crazy conversation with myself last night, because by not accepting this paradox, I'm suffering. I am reality. This is my reality, to love and embrace where I am right here and right now. Making myself vulnerable. I know every time I get up here and I stand on this platform, I kind of go, oh, but Reverend Mike, he's so good, and Reverend Nancy's so great when they get up here. And I'm like, am I good enough? But just by knowing the and part and being the and part is really important for us. We are so addicted to the intoxication of our will that we are led to believe that not getting what we want, not arriving where we aim, not achieving what we dream of is a failure from which many of us never recover. Like, I don't think I'm ever good enough. And I don't think in the past, so I get up here and I judge, was my sermon good enough? Was there enough nodding heads? Were people smiling? Were they laughing? Were they nodding? Andrea. And where in the past in your life have you felt that? Have you felt like, oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing yet? I know my friend the other day, we were talking about birthdays because birthdays are coming up, and she's turning 53. She's like, I'm just not where I thought I'd be. And I'm like, wow, you're in a loving marriage. You have a good job. You live in a beautiful house. Mind you, you're renting it. But that sounds like success to me. That sounds like success. So what kind of judgments are we putting on ourselves? What upset is coming forward for us? And he also says the only way to make it through the weight of the world is to stay in the world. We just have to stay here and keep putting one foot in front of the other. Just one foot. Keep going, one foot. When the opposites are realized to be one, discord melts into concord, battles into dances, and old enemies become lovers. We are then in the position to make friends with all of our universe, not just half of it. That's from Ken Wilber in the book No Boundaries. So how do we make friends with all of the universe, not just half of it? That's kind of the key question in our life. I'm going to ask us to do a little exercise. We did this in Sangha. I don't know, Evan, can we dim the lights just a little bit? So I want you to think of a yes, but, an issue in your life, something that's kind of calling you, that's pulling you both ways. And I would love you to have feet on the floor and your palms up, perhaps on your lap. And as you inhale, I want you to close your hands. And as you exhale, I want you to open your hands up again, palms up. And then I want you to focus on this issue that's coming forward to you, on something you're saying yes, but to. And as you inhale, I want you to close your hands and say, but. And as you exhale, I want you to open your hands, palms up, and say yes. And let's just repeat this several times. Inhale, closing our hands and say but. Exhale, palms up, say yes. Now, as we sit still in the quiet, in your heart, I want you to disconnect the yes and the but and begin to only focus on the yes and. Breathe deeply, open and closing your hands, saying yes and. And then I want you to embrace yourself in love, knowing that the paradox of the yes and is divinely yours. And so as we come back here to the center of the room, I'm going to invite our magicians and our musicians up. And I just want to say, and so it is.